Welcome to A.U.M. Ask Us Marketing. I'm your host, Kalli Fedusenko. I am the founder of Savvy Advisor Marketing, a digital marketing agency developed to build relationships between financial advisors and their target audience using data to create websites, online content, and ads. We build relationships first and we grow your numbers second. If that approach resonates with you, you can learn more about us at the QR code over here. Our episode today is brought to you by the Financial Planning Association, otherwise known as the FPA. FPA is a great resource center providing education, support, and networking opportunities for financial advisors like you. So, behind every great brand is someone making sure the engine is running smoothly. We are on part 2 of our Mitlin series, Behind the Brand at Mitlin. And Denise is joining us today to share her perspective as the operations force that helped keep the brand on track, coordinated moving parts behind the scenes, and supported Mitlin's visibility and growth from the inside out. And I'm super excited about this because this is where my background comes from. So I feel like we're going to have a lot to chat about. Please welcome with me, Denise. Hi, Denise.
Thank you for having me. How are you?
I am so good and very excited for this conversation to talk shop.
You got me out from behind my curtain.
Yes, we did it. I even think I put on our promo the invisible support.
Oh my God, he's adorable. Thank you. He looks like the ghost from Pac-Man.
Yes, because you're always behind the scenes. And I want to talk about that. Like,
Sure.
what role have you played in the behind the scenes work and the shaping and maintaining the Mitlin brand over time? I believe Larry told us you were the one who came up with what brings you joy today. So
Yep.
what else? What else can we attribute to Denise?
So I think it actually dates a little bit back further than that. If you'll indulge me, I do talk more than my husband. So for a while, I'd been really trying to get Larry to share more of him, right? He sort of saw the power of social media. I'm going to out him right now. If you go to Mitlin Financial's YouTube, there are some 9-year-old videos for Larry, which are, as our sons would call them, embarrassing. And he really wanted to educate. And I just kept saying to him, like, Larry, people want to see you. People want to see you. And he's like, no, they don't. So when we were fortunate enough to take a trip to South Africa, we actually did share pictures just once a day. And the feedback that we got from that, up to and including a family that we serve, where a woman who had COPD who said she'd never be able to go, that really resonated with her. And from there, I think Larry really got the light bulb moment. As for what you did that brought you joy, Larry came to me just about 5 years ago and said, I want to start a podcast.
Yeah.
To which I said, okay, great. What question are you going to ask each guest? And he said, what do you mean? I said, well, you need the same. So long story short, he said to me, if I need a question, then you write it. So I walked in his office the next day and said, what did you do today that brought you joy? And he looked at me, and then that was the question. And that question slowly started to transform the brand, and certainly credit to Larry for listening and learning and leaning into that. And as if your listeners listen to Larry and follow him at all, he also is very good about when on stage or on camera, he does wear what I tell him to. And the fortunate part about that is he wore a shirt in lots of colors that said, what did you do today that brought you joy? And wearing that t-shirt through the airport and in Disney World is really what led to the lean into that. People's response to that saying on a t-shirt, for as simple as it sounds.
Yeah. Yeah. So I just had it up here. There is a comment that we just received.
Yes.
Unfortunately, I can't see the name. It's a LinkedIn user who said that all marketing can be attributed to Denise. She is the spark and the oxygen that keeps us all going. I'm going to guess this was Larry, but I don't know.
No, that actually wouldn't be Larry, because I actually happen to know he has a 1 because he has a 2 because he told me I need to leave the studio exactly on time at 2 because he has one. But whoever that is, thank you. And I appreciate that. But for a long time, and it might have been Samantha Allen, she actually coined me the wizard behind the curtain, sort of a Wizard of Oz ode. And I was sort of happy there. But I think that as the profession tries to move forward, as we start to speak to audiences, sometimes to drown out the TikToker who says your 401k is a scam.
Hmm.
I'm okay sort of coming out if it helps another advisor sort of have that courage to say, no, you know what, I'm going to connect with my audience. I'm going to speak to them.
Right.
I'm going to have and make that impact.
Yeah. Yeah. I love that. Because it's true. There's a lot of misinformation out there, and it can spread so fast. And we need those who are educated and know the truth to be showing up. So I love that you kind of pushed the whole thing. Um, but you also were doing operations at the same time, I believe. Tell me if I'm wrong. So
No,
I'm just
my job is to make stuff look pretty.
okay.
I
Okay.
don't. No, we have a director of first impressions, Josh Rubel.
Yeah.
Carmen does a lot of Larry's paperwork. I am very fortunate, and actually, I was just at my second time at Carson Group Partner
Mhm.
Academy, and I'm specifically designated to marketing, and I do share, and I'm very fortunate that my sole job is I care for the Mitlin brand. I
Yeah.
care for marketing as it relates to the company,
Mhm.
Larry, the podcast, soon to be the Larry Sprung YouTube channel.
Mm.
As well as I also do consult and help our staff here. If they do want to have a voice, they're welcome to come to me and sort of say how they do that. But I do have my full-time job
Yeah.
is marketing.
I love that. Did it start out as full-time or was it part-time and kind of built into full-time?
So I spent 16 years running a search firm, actually placing doctors in the pharmaceutical industry.
Mm.
As an aside for fun, talk about life takes you in crazy places.
It sure does.
I launched a book blog called
Mhm.
Shh, Mom's Reading with a friend of mine. And from that, many of those authors support my brother's memorial fund, the Keith Milano
Mm.
Memorial Fund at the American Foundation for Suicide Prevention.
Mm.
We were going to a book event.
Mhm.
We were speaking to some of the authors and actually throwing a cocktail party for those who'd supported Keith's fund and donated a portion of their May book sales. And the event organizer said to me, you know, I know what your husband does. Would
Yeah.
he mind just talking? Because so many of these authors go from W-2 employees to 1099 and they
Mhm.
don't understand what that means.
Yes.
And I
Yes.
was like, well, I'll back up and say, and it probably ties into the CEO Coldplay escapade. She actually, the full thing she said to me, Kalli, if you can
Yeah.
believe it or not, is, well, you know, your husband's going to be in a room full of women. To which I said,
Mm.
cool, I'm expensive. Like, this was really how the call went.
Right.
So Larry came to that romance conference and he put on a presentation called Write Your Financial Future. Who's
Mm.
writing your happily ever after?
Mhm.
He's since given that to a number of author groups. Actually, it is in production to be turned into a guide, which will be free
Mm.
on our website. And slowly over time, that actually transitioned to serving romance authors.
Hmm. Interesting.
And a lot of the work that I did with the blog
Yeah.
related to social media, getting just the blog's voice out there, but then really seeing that authors more and more put their voices out there, they
Mm.
connected with their audience.
Mhm.
And
Mhm.
I slowly started to do that for Larry and the brand. So it really was organic.
Yeah.
With the pandemic is about when I transitioned full time.
Mm.
And full disclosure, you know, Carson Group said I had to be on the website, so I'm on the website.
They said you had to, otherwise you wouldn't.
And I should say, I say that sort of jokingly because complete aside,
Yeah.
the compliance team at Carson Group is completely amazing. I just spent some personal time with them out there, and they really
Yeah.
get what it is that we're trying to do. Because back to where we started,
Mhm.
the average consumer doesn't know the difference, right?
Mm.
Too many
Mhm.
titles, too many letters.
Oh, yeah.
They don't know the difference.
Yeah.
Um, so compliance absolutely certainly does have its place, but for us, they've been very productive, and actually, the changes that they made to Larry's book
Mhm.
actually made it better.
Mm.
It
That
did. Yeah.
is really an impressive thing to hear from a marketing person. Tell me a little bit about Carson Group and our audience. So they do compliance. What else do they do that you're partnering with them?
Sure. So Carson Group is our corporate RIA.
Okay.
Um, I will say that part of the reason that Larry is able to do what he's able to do is because of the support of Carson Group.
Mhm.
So their website, our website, the content that goes every week, they do. We can certainly make blog posts, we can ask for changes, we can ask for content, but we do know every week specifically market commentary
Mhm.
is actually done by an amazing team led by Ryan
Mhm.
Dietrich and Sonu
Mhm.
Varghese, who, I mean, Ryan's on CNBC all the time, and we're fortunate to have
Yeah.
him. They also, and probably more importantly,
Mhm.
maybe not more importantly, probably equally as important, is our tech stack. So
Okay.
the amazing thing about our tech stack is it is provided by Carson Group,
Mm-hmm.
and the person leading our tech stack is industry thought leader Danny Fava.
Mm.
She's been with us for about a little shy of 18 months, and the transformation to our tech stack has been amazing. And
Yeah.
the fact that Larry has that off his plate,
Mm-hmm.
he doesn't have to worry about what the latest and greatest, what the hottest buzzword is, how the tech's going to integrate. We actually have locked behind Carson's walls. It's actually called Steve, and Steve is our proprietary AI bot. And
Oh,
we can put whatever we want into Steve with
yeah.
limits in terms of like numbers of files.
Sure. Okay.
And Steve will talk to us and answer questions.
Wow.
And I think that not only is that Carson Group leaning into technology,
Mm-hmm.
but I also think that it's an ode to how when Danny stepped into Carson Group, she really respected what has been built. Steve is
Mm.
actually named after Steve Zenowicki. Steve was our head of training.
Mm.
So the first iteration of Steve was actually our training cards turned into an AI bot.
Mm.
And now Steve Poitokono is full on AI that we can use for ourselves to read documents to help us understand better.
Yeah.
But our tech stock is a wider breadth than that.
Yeah.
Holistaplan, which probably most people saw after the One Beautiful Bill went live, that team worked over the weekend to
Mm.
ensure that that software was updated and could do tax planning for people that Monday morning. We have
Wow.
that. We have Orion. We actually power our CRM with Salesforce. By the way,
Okay.
she's very powerful. Don't quite understand how to use her. I'm sorry, all tech is a female except for Steve to me. Um, and then, as you mentioned, compliance,
Yeah.
which again, for us, compliance has been helpful and supportive. And even when we want to, do some little bit different stuff, like Larry's
Mhm.
out there speaking and I need a tear sheet, I can get on the
Mm.
phone with compliance and we have conversations about sort of how to make that fit.
Yeah.
So a lot of the business stuff
Mhm.
that fundamentally will slow an advisor down
It's handled.
is handled, and the time that's given Larry back in his day, one, led to the book.
Mm.
We had time. And two, we've 5x since joining Carson Group.
Wow. That's
Yep.
amazing.
We also get access to some really cool.
Mhm.
I'm not an investment person, but I
Mhm.
will tell you that for exit planning, we have some very unique strategies that I'm not
Mm.
even supposed to name by name. Plus, I don't know what their names are. Um,
So no worries.
um, but but from an investment portfolio, so
Yeah.
right, we're talking here about leading with joy.
Mhm.
And we do that. And
Yeah.
conversations here don't start with numbers, and they often don't ever even go into, unless you want to,
Mhm.
exactly what securities or what portfolios. They're just along
Right.
with your risk assessment.
Yeah.
But if you do, they're selected by a team of CFAs. And my husband
Mm.
is not arrogant enough to ever pretend he could be smarter than 7 CFAs locked in a room.
Mm.
So they do the investment strategies as well. They
Mhm.
don't pick them for the families we serve, but they construct them and stay on top of them.
Mm.
We now also have a number of other alliances that include, we can FDIC insure money for families up to, I think it's $6 million.
Okay.
So you put it in the aggregate fund, and then you don't have to worry if you're going to go over the limit. And all of that is provided because we are a Carson partner.
Mm.
That
Okay.
one's with Flourish. So we get
Yeah.
a lot of access to tech and
Mhm.
additional ways to assist the families we serve because of that.
Gotcha. Okay. Sounds like it's been a great partnership.
For
Um,
us, it has.
yeah. Speaking of partnerships, so you started and became full-time during the pandemic. Was at any point did you decide that pieces were going to be outsourced?
So some of what we do is outsourced,
Mhm.
and will continue to be.
Yeah.
Actually, Larry suggested that I read, and I'll go with listen to,
Mhm.
"Buy Back Your Time" by Dan Martell.
Oh, I just literally bought that book. Sitting
Yeah,
on my
so
desk right
I have the
here.
audio. I have the audio playing in my car. Um, so there are some pieces that are outsourced.
Mm.
The production of the podcast is outsourced.
Mhm.
Um,
Okay.
the creation of the YouTube channel, actually, that's our largest marketing spend ever. We actually fully outsourced the strategy and the filming, and all of that has been outsourced.
Okay.
Krista, who is our admin, does support
Yep.
me in some of the creative aspects.
Mhm.
And then I'm actually in the process of, with the help of that book, going through what are my tasks that can be
Mm.
outsourced.
Okay. Okay. Um, well, I was just about to ask you, how did you decide? But it sounds like the book has some sort of breakdown that helps you pick which pieces would be good to, um, to
So
outsource?
the first thing we outsourced was the podcast, right? Because
Yeah.
that's a lot of moving parts. Just brought on a different company to really increase the beautification is probably the
Mm,
best word
okay.
of what the
Aesthetic.
podcast looks like when it's out on YouTube,
Okay.
and when its shorts are created.
Yeah.
Um, so, for instance, if you have Brian Portnoy on, it's really
Mhm.
cool when Larry says "Shaping Wealth" and then the book cover "Shaping Wealth" drops in, right? So that
Yeah.
really sort of ups the user experience,
Okay.
and
Mhm.
really playing to that, you get about 30 seconds. So,
Mhm.
one of the benefits of having children who are in their
Mm.
20s, one's not
Mhm.
quite 20, but is that, they'll sort of talk to you about, the TikTok attention span.
Yeah.
Mom, you have 2 seconds to grab someone's eyes and then they're gone.
Right.
So really having that forward thinking. In terms
Yeah.
of the YouTube channel, we actually went fully produced, higher end video. That was very intentional. We actually ran our first advisory council for
Mhm.
the families that we serve.
Mhm.
We were very intentional about who we put in the room. They range in ages from 28 to mid 60s. We were actually able to split half women, half men. None of them were spouses because
Mm.
over 30% of the families that we serve are female led households.
Mm.
Um, and one of the things that they actually said was that they would really like a channel where there would be some education focused.
Okay.
We were already in the process of doing that, but
Yeah.
it certainly moved Larry all along a little bit further in terms of, yeah, we're going to pull the trigger on that because
Right.
it is a pretty large spend. So
Right.
the first things we outsourced were things that I just realized were beyond my capacity.
Okay. Okay. All right. You just mentioned it's a big spend, which, I hear a lot from different marketing managers that they have to convince the lead advisor to invest into some aspect of marketing. Have you experienced that at Mitlin? And if there was times where you had to convince Larry, like, okay, this is going to be worth it, how did you get everybody to stick with it until you saw that return?
I will say, I think that when Larry commits to something, he commits to something
Mhm.
so that he understands that nothing's going to happen in a month.
Yeah.
Nothing's going to happen in 2 weeks. Nothing's going to happen in 6 months. So I think that part of his deciding is deciding that it's going to be for the long term.
Mm.
So that part I didn't necessarily have to overcome. Some of the other pieces, like the decision to pull the YouTube channel, that
Mhm.
certainly took a while.
Sure.
Um, but the catalyst for that, and if there are advisors listening who haven't done an advisory council, I would highly recommend it. We
Mm.
got some truly amazing feedback and
Mm.
some stuff that you just don't think of.
Right.
The only warning I would give you is be careful what you ask because some of the stuff we can't. Right, like I can't change what a Schwab paperwork. Like I can't change that.
Right.
So, be careful what you ask. But
Yeah.
I mean, if you want, I can give you a really solid piece of feedback that we never even thought of.
Yeah, I'd love to hear
So
that.
Larry was very careful that we wanted to talk to the families about, what they wanted the firm to look like, what was
Yeah.
working, what wasn't. We talked a lot about timing and pieces of marketing and were we in communication enough and how much should we communicate? By
Mm.
the way, turns out clients don't want a text message unless it's a dumpster fire. Did they like the wiki email? Yes, they did. Many of them said even though they didn't open it, it made them feel good that it was there and that if they saw
Mm.
something on the news, they knew they'd go back and watch it.
Mm.
And then the only question that Larry asked about recommendations was, what could we do to be more referable?
Mm.
And it turned out some of the families in the room we'd served for almost 20 years.
Mm.
They did not have Larry's contact in their phone.
Interesting.
So
I
we
guess that
showed
makes
them,
sense because why
yep,
would you?
yep.
Yeah.
So we showed them, we
Yeah.
use Popple as a digital business card.
Yeah.
And Larry sort of passed his phone around the room and they said, oh, I would love that. But you know what I would really love? And it was actually
Mm.
two women who simultaneously said something similar. I would love if one of the tabs said meet Larry and it was a
Mm.
video about
Yeah.
Larry talking about Larry, because really
Yes.
that humanity, right?
Yep.
So we learned that the
Mhm.
families we serve don't have a real contact in their phone. So now when you get
Mm.
onboarded to Mitlin Financial, we share a digital business card with you.
I love that. What a
But
great
how shocking,
tip
right?
too. Yeah. We do have a question for you. Alexandra wants to know how much of an undertaking and slash time commitment was it to create an advisory council?
So Larry and I split that work,
Mhm.
in true me fashion. I did swag because, of course, there's swag. There's always swag.
Yeah.
Allie knows me. There's always swag. Um, I did the planning of the event. We actually did it at the country club where Larry and I remember. So we had a room there. We arranged for food during and some snacks after.
Mhm.
Before I get to time, I will also say Larry and I purposely only put he and I in the room,
Mm.
so that we would get honest
Honest
feedback. Turns
feedback,
out to
yeah.
be there nothing we wouldn't share, but
Right.
just want to make sure that people were comfortable.
Yeah.
Um, Back to Carson Group.
Mhm.
Carson Group actually did give us a playbook to start with because they have a
Mm.
playbook for almost everything.
Mhm.
Larry spoke with, I think, 3 other Carson Group owners who'd also done an advisory council,
Mhm.
as well as a Carson Group partner firm. He also has
Mm.
access to Carson Coaching,
Mhm.
so his coach helped us as well.
Okay.
In terms of actual hours, I mean, probably 40 or 50, a fair amount.
Okay.
But Larry went and each person who was invited got an
Mhm.
individual bomb from him. If you're not
Mm.
familiar with that, it's a recorded video.
Mhm.
So it was a video inviting them, letting them know what the time commitment would be, really laying it out.
Mhm.
After they accepted the day before, maybe 2 days before, same thing. This video was a little bit longer,
Yeah.
about 12 minutes, but I will tell you that we could see that every member watched it almost all the way through.
Okay.
Um, so it is a fairly large time commitment,
Mm.
but I will say to get the top families that you serve
Mhm.
to feel so connected to your brand that they want to help you be better,
Right.
um, is I don't know anything more powerful. I mean, we had one gentleman in the room who was like, "How can I tell people that I love you? Like, how can I do more?" And actually,
Right.
he's going to sit down with Pantera,
Yeah.
and he's actually going to record a testimonial because it
Mm.
turns out that as a retired NYPD officer, there are unfortunately some folks rolling money out of those plans that are resulting in tax penalties, and
Mm.
the police officers, don't know any better. So
Yeah.
that's another awesome thing that came out of that as a complete aside. Uh,
Yeah. Yeah. Do you think that the next one will take just as much time, or do you feel like a lot of it was on the front end, that initial setup, and now it's like, okay, we have a process and it's going to go faster?
so that's a great question, and it will definitely go faster because the board members have to give that to your commitment.
Mm. Okay.
So there's this, so it'll become a rolling board,
Mhm.
which is similar to the structure of, say, a board of directors or what Larry was when he was
Right.
on the board for the American Foundation for Suicide Prevention. So a lot
Mm.
of the lift is on the onset. And like I said, we definitely got a cheat head start because we did get a guide. We got some frameworks that we were able
Right.
to edit around. Again,
Mhm.
benefits of the partnership. I didn't I
Right.
didn't have to send it to anyone with Carson language, but I don't know about anyone else. It always helps me if I'm writing from something that's a template and sort of
Yes.
editing off of that, right? So
Yeah.
it will definitely be less.
Mhm.
And the other thing we did in a very proactive fashion is um, we do have some spouses who are almost always at our events for the families we serve.
Mhm.
And we did sort of jokingly say to one, like, hey, if your wife is on, maybe in 2 years you could be on because they're not on together.
Mm.
We really want the individual voice.
Okay. Okay.
So
Uh,
definitely it's a much more of an upfront lift.
yeah. Yeah. Um, yes, I have worked in the past at some firms that had client advisory boards, and I've never heard anyone say it wasn't worth the investment, either time or, monetarily.
I
Everybody
will
always
say
seems to be happy.
absolute full disclosure.
Mhm.
Because if you know Larry and I, we do admit publicly when one is right and the other is wrong. I actually really wasn't too
Keen.
excited.
Yeah.
I was like, I'm sorry, we're doing what? We're asking people what? Because I really, right? It's okay. So what if you tell me that the paperwork's like a huge, I can't fix that, right? So
Right.
I had this really tough time sort of getting to how would we be able to add value because I don't
Mhm.
know how much we could change. But
Mhm.
then because you never really understand the person who's going through the experience, it
Mhm.
was absolutely worth it.
Yeah.
And we got some pain points that we didn't expect.
Mm.
And
Mhm.
then again, simply now adding a digital business card to onboarding new
Right.
families could turn out to be huge. So, as a team a couple years ago, we read, believe it or not, Fans First by Jesse Cole, the
Mm.
owner of the Savannah Bananas, who, he's transformed the way baseball's viewed, and he now fills football stadiums so people can watch trick baseball.
Mm.
And finding those pain points I
Mhm.
really don't think you find unless you are in the other seat, and
Yeah.
we were fortunate to have 20 people who are willing to share what the other side of the seat looked like.
Yeah. Yeah. A little off topic, but let's say it
Oh, you can go off
was
topic all the time. My brain goes off topic every day.
perfect. Um, if it's a newer advisor who maybe they don't even have 20 clients yet, do you think it's worth doing anything at that point, or should they wait until they have more clients to start an advisory board?
Uh, I think that some of that depends on the advisor, and
Yeah.
some of it depends on who you're with. So if
Mm,
you're a solo advisor,
mhm.
um, then I would say yes. Take 5 people, bring them to lunch.
Yeah.
Be very clear what the lunch will be and be very clear that it's gonna be a structured conversation.
Right. Yeah. Okay.
If
I like
you're an
that.
advisor who works at a broker-dealer that doesn't let you have a voice, then I would say no, unless you're gonna decide that RA is where you're
You're
taking
leaving.
your
Yeah.
brand.
Yeah. Makes
So I
sense.
think it depends on, who that advisor is and
Right.
where they're going forward.
Yeah.
I will say, though, to that younger advisor,
Mhm.
before you say you wanna build it yourself, I would take a hard look at what's around you because you don't know
Mm.
what you don't know, and
Mhm.
Penny Phillips also talks about, there's a big difference between being an advisor and being a business owner.
Mm. Mhm.
And the further you can get that delta,
Mhm.
I think one, the faster the business grows, which
Yeah.
we've certainly seen with the Carson Group. But on the second, you can also serve better
Mm.
because you spend more of your time connected to the families that you serve. And I see
Right.
that with Jarrell.
Yeah. Yes. Um, Speaking of, I think Larry said last time, I mean, I know he did, but I'm not remembering the topic. You guys are doing a webinar for advisors
We actually are.
in a month or two?
Yeah. So you can go to joyfuladvisor.com.
Mhm.
And Larry will be presenting the power of leading with joy.
Mm.
And what we're doing there is very much in line with the human centric advice that will be the future of their profession.
Mm. Mhm.
We are going to pull the curtain back a little bit. If you sign up to be on the wait list, you'll get how we run a discovery call, how Larry
Mm.
and Jarrell run their discovery call. Spoiler alert, we don't talk about numbers. And it was interesting. Like I said, I was just out at Carson Group, and Jamie Carroll, who runs one of the offices in the Southeast, was saying that they were sitting with a family who's about to sell a business for $18 million.
Mm.
And about halfway through the presentation, the gentleman looked at her and said, "Why are there no charts and graphs? Everybody else showed me charts and graphs."
Yeah.
And Jamie said, she responded, "If you want, I can. What color? What do you want to say? But I don't know what those graphs should say unless I know what you want,
Yeah.
unless I know what that end goal looks like for you, right?"
Right.
I mean, and on the flip side, if I draw you a chart today, 4 days ago, it wasn't accurate because tax planning all just changed thanks to the one big beautiful bill.
Mhm.
Um,
Mhm.
but I think that what we've done and what Larry will do with that is sort of pull back the curtain a little bit and
Mm.
say, I know that many of you, particularly if you're at a large wirehouse or some of the big firms based here in New York, they taught you how to sell proprietary products. They taught you how to show graphs and charts and talk about return on investment.
Yeah.
I'm sorry, no one cares. Well, here's the difference. What's
Yeah.
the difference between saying, let's help you save for your child's college
Mm.
versus let's help your daughter graduate medical school debt free?
Mm.
I just
Mhm.
said the same thing, but
Mhm.
I said them in a way that's deeply personal to you.
Right. Right.
So what we're doing is pulling the curtain back and showing advisors that if you're going to sit down with a family and show them asset allocation, but you don't know what that money's funding, then what are
Mm.
you really doing? And is your advice
Mhm.
really personal?
Yeah.
And the other thing there is we're growing. I mean,
Mm.
we get 3 to 5 incoming leads per week. So the other reason there is if there are advisors out there that want to lead with joy and want some of that
Mhm.
lift taken off, we are here and we are expanding.
Yeah.
Um, but it will be, you know, email address, first name, that's it, no payment. Larry's not going to go out there and coach. We just want to share the advice so that we can help grow the profession in a direction that can hopefully help advisors help more families.
Yeah. And then for those who are listening and not watching, it's
Yes.
joyful advisor,
Uh,
not advisors.
no, singular.
I made that mistake last week.
Oh, sorry. I probably
Oh,
should have
no,
actually
not
marked it.
on you.
I do have a bookmark that I'll have at, I probably have it with me at Future Proof.
Yeah.
But yeah, so I mean, the whole goal is to really help advisors bring joy to the money journey, right?
Mm.
And for as simple as that sounds, Kalli, really the point is
Mhm.
people are more apt to save if they know what the money's for.
Right.
Um, and I think that part of the reason why a lot of this resonates is it's a lot of what Larry and I have done.
Mm.
Actually, if you want to check,
Mhm.
Larry and Jarrell stopped by the very first apartment that Larry and I lived at. It was this main floor apartment in Massapequa where it was so warm in our bedroom. I don't even have words because we were above 4 oil burners, right? Um, but back then, we had a bank account labeled vacation fund. We had a bank
Mhm.
account
Mhm.
labeled home fund,
Yep.
because I think that when you put the money away and you know what it's going to be for,
Yeah.
and you're intentional about that, I think there's more satisfaction that comes from that, and you're more apt to do it.
Right.
Saving money for some date called retirement.
Right. Yeah.
And again, Larry and I have always we personally balanced the living versus saving.
Mhm.
Um, in the book,
Mhm.
compliance approved. Uh, we have we have an older son that goes to Drexel.
Yeah.
70 cents when the book was written, 70 cents on
Mm.
every dollar that funds Zachary's Drexel tuition is growth in a
Mm.
529 plan opened before that young man was born. By the way, you can do that. Didn't know you could do that if it wasn't for Larry.
Yeah.
But on the flip side, we also took every Friday off when those boys were little so we could spend time with
Mm.
them.
I
So I
love
think
that.
part of the reason why,
Right.
enjoy the journey resonates is because the longer you've known Larry and I, the longer you know we also live it. Um,
Mhm.
we live it for very real reasons. Larry lost his mom when she was in her early 40s. My
Mm.
brother died at 27.
Mm.
Not everybody gets to retirement.
Right. Right.
Whatever retirement is for you. I mean,
Right.
I don't
Yeah.
love the term, but not everyone gets to that someday.
Right. Right. So it's a balance.
Yes.
Yep. Um, so we are at the 30-minute mark. So as we're closing, what would you say to any firms who are trying to grow a brand? Like what lessons can they learn from your journey?
I think probably the first one is to decide who you want to be,
Mm.
right? You,
Mhm.
you're not looking to be anyone else. You're looking to be you, and then
Yeah.
you have no competition. Actually, hi Jarrell. I see Jarrell on there, and Jarrell and I have conversations about it, right? Like,
Yeah.
who are you? And then who is that voice you want to amplify? And then second, as it relates to both, how the T-shirt resonated with people
Mm.
and to our advisory council, I
Mm.
think to tie back to that is to listen with like big
Mm.
giant elephant ears, and what is it that resonates with people,
Yeah.
and what are they hearing, and then to lean into that. And trust me, when you tell a book cover designer to put "What did you do today that brought you joy" on the front of a personal finance book, they certainly look at like you and say, "I'm sorry, what?" And I'm like, "Dude, I don't care, just do it," right? So I also put a joy T-shirt on a
Yeah.
financial advisor and had him stand on stage. So lean
Yeah.
into it if it's working, and if other people think you're a little nutty, that's okay.
Yeah. You'll attract the ones that don't.
Well, that's probably the other key piece of marketing. I think a lot of
Yeah.
people are afraid to put themselves out there because they're afraid of what they'll push away instead of
Mm.
thinking about what they're going to pull towards you.
Mhm.
We actually have a real estate agent who came to us,
Mhm.
literally picked up the phone, and she was ready to do business with us. And when she was in the advisory council meeting, it was because if Larry cares that much about his family, then I know
Mm.
he'll care about mine.
Oh, love that.
Yeah, that was really powerful.
What a
I tried
great,
not to cry.
yeah, a great testimony. Um, that was great. I love everything that you said, Denise. And thank you so much for stepping out from behind the curtain to share
Yeah,
with us
can't go back
today.
hide now.
You can.
Most days you'll find me in a hoodie. Sorry, I have a collection.
You can go put the hoodie back on.
Thank you.
Thank you so much, Denise.
My pleasure. Thank you for having me.
Absolutely. Also, a quick plug for anyone joining us. If you've launched a podcast or you're about to, but you're not sure how to grow it, promote it, or turn listeners into real business, check out our podcast promotion course. It's designed for financial advisors and it includes everything you need: a proven checklist, a pre built automated scheduler, templates, and real world examples to help your podcast get traction. Just scan that QR code and it will take you to the page where you can learn more. And then make sure you join us next week where we're going to be talking with Josh from FinArt. And we're going to talk about our experience in helping design I don't want to say design a brand because a brand is far more than the design, but from the design aspect, we will be sharing what it's like when we're building that, how we decide what we're going to use. And maybe you can take away some of those pieces and apply it to your own brand. That will be next Monday at noon Central, as always. And until then, have a